What happens when the global economy is, entirely run by machines and there are basically no humans left to hit the brakes?
That is the big question, isn't it?
Right. Because for decades, we've loved to believe that someone, somewhere, is driving the car. That if you trace the tangled wires of our global economy or international diplomacy, you'll eventually find a control room.
Yeah, a control room with a very smart person just turning a dial, keeping everything from flying off the tracks.
Exactly.
But, I mean, it is a deeply comforting illusion. We just crave this idea of a maestro, right?
Yeah.
A singular figure who can conduct the sheer chaos of human behavior into some kind of predictable symphony.
Well, today we're looking at what happens when that illusion shatters. So welcome to our deep dive. For you listening right now, we have a highly curated exploration of today's landscape.
And we are pulling our insights today exclusively from one incredibly dense source, which is the full June 22, 2026 edition of the Daily Tech Reader blog.
Yeah, it's a massive read. Our mission today is to explore a really fascinating, volatile snapshot in time. We're looking at a day where monumental historical legacies are just violently colliding with the bleeding edge of tomorrow's tech.
Plus, fragile global politics, and frankly, the uncontrollable forces of the planet itself.
It's a lot.
It is. We are standing right on the fault line between the analog, human-controlled systems of the past and a highly volatile, algorithmic future.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the idea of the maestro isn't just a metaphor today, it's the literal headline.
Yeah, Alan Greenspan.
Right. The former Federal Reserve chairman has died at the age of 100.
From complications of Parkinson's disease, the source notes.
Yeah. And we're talking about a man who cast an absolute towering shadow over modern economics. I mean, he ran the Fed for nearly 19 years.
Under 4 different presidents.
Right, from Ronald Reagan all the way through George W. Bush.
He was essentially the ultimate pilot during some of the most, turbulent economic weather in modern history.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, he steered the U.S. through the 1987 Black Monday crash. He navigated the dizzying heights of the dot-com boom.
Which was unprecedented at the time.
Completely, and then managed the profound economic shock waves of 9/11. Though, as our source points out, his legacy remains intensely contested.
Yeah, there's a large course of critics who point out that his reliance on deregulation and keeping interest rates so low basically laid the exact structural groundwork for the 2008 financial crisis.
Right, that's a huge part of his legacy, too.
But the phrase that is going to outlive him, and honestly outlive all of us, is from 1996.
Ah, yes.
He famously asked if the markets were suffering from irrational exuberance.
Which is just such a brilliantly polite academic way of saying, everyone has completely lost their minds and is buying things based on pure hype.
Exactly. It's such Fed speak. And the source included this really touching tribute from his wife of 29 years, NBC's Andrea Mitchell.
Yeah, that was a nice inclusion.
She talked about his willingness to be honest regarding his policy mistakes, but she also highlighted that he had his own personal irrational exuberance for baseball, the Washington Commanders, tennis, golf, and jazz music.
What's fascinating here is how the mechanics of human market psychology rarely change, right? Even as the underlying technology evolves way beyond our comprehension.
That's so true.
You can practically see the ghost of Greenspan's 1996 warning just haunting the trading floors right now.
Oh, absolutely. I was just looking at the board, and the U.S. markets just reopened after the Juneteenth holiday. And analysts in our source are drawing a direct, bright red line between the dot-com bubble Greenspan warned about and the current AI IPO frenzy.
It's hard not to see the parallels.
I mean, look at SpaceX. Trading as SPCX, they just had a staggering $75 billion public debut.
Even though the stock pulled back, 3.6% on Thursday?
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
And then you've got OpenAI's pending S1. And, for anyone listening who doesn't spend their day reading SEC filings, an S1 is essentially a company fully opening its financial kimono to the public right before they IPO.
Right, laying it all out there.
And you add all that to the magnificent 7 tech stocks enduring a massive $2 trillion sell-off just in June.
Wow.
Yeah, and Greenspan himself actually warned about AI asset bubbles forming in his final years.
Well, the mechanism of a financial bubble operates on the exact same engine every single time. It's the fear of missing out.
FOMO.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The asset changes. So, it might be fiber optic cables in the late 90s or massive neural networks today. But the human greed that drives the valuation, that does not change.
But I look at the 1990s internet infrastructure build-out and compare it to the 2026 AI compute build-out. And I kind of have to push back a bit on the sheer enthusiasm.
Oh, how so?
Well, are investors mistaking the picks and shovels for the gold itself?
Ah,
Because back in the gold rush, the people getting rich were the ones selling the shovels. Now, instead of shovels, we're pouring trillions into, like, server farms and data cooling infrastructure. Are we just wearing the exact same rose-colored glasses Greenspan tried to rip off our faces 30 years ago?
that's a great question. And the hidden danger there is the velocity.
Speed.
Right. Back in the 90s, human beings were physically trading stocks based on their own exuberance. Today, we have algorithms executing thousands of trades in a fraction of a second.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah, they're identifying and accelerating that human exuberance.
Hmm.
It fundamentally changes how quickly a bubble can inflate and ultimately burst.
Wow.
And speaking of the sheer speed of technology, while the financial press is busy, eulogizing Greenspan's analog control of the economy, the White House just quietly escalated the hard reality of the next generation tech arms race.
Right. This completely flew under the radar because of the Greenspan news. So President Trump just signed an executive order in the Oval Office specifically targeting quantum computing.
Yeah, it's a huge move.
The order accelerates federal funding, pushes aggressive workforce development, and mandates new security protocols for quantum-resistant encryption across all government systems.
Yeah.
And the explicit goal stated is to compete with China.
We should probably break down why quantum-resistant encryption is the centerpiece here.
Please do.
So standard encryption, which is the math that currently protects your bank account, your medical records, global military communications, it's like a padlock that would take a traditional computer millions of years to pick.
Okay.
But a sufficiently powerful quantum computer doesn't pick the lock. It essentially tries every possible combination simultaneously.
Wait, really? Just all at once?
Yes, it could crack standard encryption in seconds.
That is insane.
That's why this executive order is a ticking clock. If a rival nation gets there first, every secret the U.S. holds is effectively an open book.
So it's basically Y2K, but with weapons-grade geopolitical consequences.
Exactly.
And China did not wait to respond. They immediately announced sanctions against 10 American military-related companies.
Which our source frames as direct retaliation for the U.S., barring Chinese tech firms from defense contracts.
Right. And just to pause here for a second, for everyone listening, it is a critical requirement for us on this deep dive to explicitly state that we are impartially reporting on these politically charged moves
Absolutely.
from both the Trump administration and the Chinese government. We're not endorsing any viewpoints, left-wing or right-wing. We're simply conveying the geopolitical realities contained in the source material.
Right. And looking purely at the geopolitical mechanics detailed in the source, the strategy here is a deliberate chokehold.
Yeah.
Retaliating against U.S. military companies sends immediate shockwaves through deeply intertwined semiconductor and aerospace supply chains.
Because we are so globally entangled that
Huh.
you literally cannot punish the other guy without punching yourself in the wallet.
Precisely. Both nations rely on the same rare earth minerals and microchip fabricators.
And that interconnectedness isn't just limited to microchips and code, right?
No, it dictates real-time diplomacy and physical resources.
Which brings us to the Middle East, where, honestly, geopolitical whiplash is really the only way to describe the current state of affairs.
Whiplash is a good word for it.
So we have Vice President Vance departing Switzerland and, importantly, leaving the rest of the U.S. negotiating behind.
Right.
He tells reporters on his way out that Iran has agreed to admit nuclear monitors into the country.
But then,
Yeah, almost immediately, Iran publicly comes out and flatly contradicts him. They denied making any new nuclear commitments whatsoever.
it is a stunning public contradiction on the world stage.
Right.
I mean, usually these negotiations are carefully choreographed so both sides can claim a quiet victory.
Right, exactly. But here's where I have to admit some serious confusion, and I'm hoping you can decode this for me and everyone listening.
I can try.
Why on earth did the U.S. still move forward with temporarily lifting sanctions on Iranian oil? Tehran can now sell crude freely on international markets. Wait, so the U.S. lifted oil sanctions even though Iran publicly embarrassed us and contradicted the narrative on the nuclear monitors?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive.
How does that make any strategic sense?
Well, the mechanism driving that decision is the global energy market. The U.S. might be prioritizing immediate economic relief over diplomatic optics.
Okay.
By lifting those sanctions, millions of barrels of Iranian oil flood the market. That brings down Brent crude futures, which is essentially the global benchmark for oil prices, because the anticipated global supply just went up.
Oh, I see. So it's a high-stakes gamble to lower prices at the pump while simultaneously trying to manage a deeply fragile region.
Exactly.
The source also mentions a newly established Lebanon deconfliction cell that's being facilitated by Qatar and Pakistan.
Right. The strategy there is to decouple the oil economics from the nuclear posturing to force broader regional stabilization.
Ah.
They are trying to keep the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah from unraveling, and they desperately need Gulf partners on board.
Which explains why Secretary of State Marco Rubio is heading to the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain this week.
Exactly. But it is incredibly delicate. If the talks collapse, analysts warn the drop in oil prices will reverse overnight.
Wow. And it's not just the Middle East experiencing these sharp, sudden political shifts. We're seeing major realignments in South America as well.
Huge shifts.
Yeah, Colombia just woke up to a massive political earthquake. Conservative candidate Abelardo de la Espriella, representing the defenders of the motherland movement, defeated progressive Ivan Cepeda.
Who's a close ally of current leader Gustavo Petro.
Right.
The underlying mechanism here is a broader global trend of voters feeling economically squeezed or concerned about security and pulling the emergency brake to flip the ideological script.
Yeah, and the geopolitical ripple effects are immediate. President Trump congratulated de la Espriella, stating he is looking forward to a powerful relationship.
And de la Espriella has already pledged to aggressively renew diplomatic ties with Israel and open an embassy in Jerusalem.
Right. And again, just to maintain our strict political neutrality here as we explore the source material, we're solely reporting the outcomes of the Colombian election and these diplomatic pledges to show how rapidly alliances can shift.
Exactly. What connects all of these macro-level events? The quantum encryption arms race, the complex Iranian oil gamble, the Colombian election, is a profound foundational question of trust.
Trust.
Yeah. Who do you trust to hold the keys? Who do you trust to verify the truth?
That is a great point. And that macro-level breakdown of trust is bleeding heavily into localized everyday crises. We're seeing it impact communities in devastating ways.
It really is.
Like over in Montreal, a tragic shooting in a Jewish neighborhood left a police officer, a civilian, and the attacker dead.
Awful.
The motive is still under investigation, but what added a massive layer of trauma was the informational chaos surrounding it. A victim's identity was misreported and then had to be reversed by the Zake organization.
Right, and to give some context there, Zake is primarily an Israeli private emergency response organization.
Sure.
So it might seem strange they'd be reporting on a Canadian police matter, but in a vacuum of quick official reporting, international diaspora networks often step in to share information.
That makes sense.
But when they have to retract an identity in the middle of a tragedy, it violently deepens the confusion for the community.
Yeah. The source also notes a man named Michael Mizrachi is critically wounded, with his family pleading for prayers.
This is tragic.
It is. And we see a very similar breakdown of trust and safety in the Philippines. At San Jose National High School in Tacloban City, a school shooting left students in absolute terror.
Yeah.
The campus went on full lockdown, and the suspects in this case actually claimed they were victims of severe bullying.
Right.
Which is prompting this massive, painful national conversation across the Philippines regarding campus security and anti-bullying enforcement. People are asking, like, where were the warning signs? Who failed to intervene?
These tragedies highlight just how fragile our local institutional safety nets really are.
Yeah.
But there's another kind of institutional trust breakdown happening entirely inside our own bodies, and it's being heavily fueled by social media algorithms.
Oh, right. The NPR investigation into the gut health industry.
Yeah.
We are talking about a multi-billion-dollar market where wellness influencers are aggressively pushing supplements and expensive tests to, quote-unquote, fix a broken gut microbiome.
Right. And the problem identified by the investigation is that the marketing is vastly outpacing the actual peer-reviewed scientific evidence.
Which is finally bringing serious regulatory scrutiny down on the whole space.
The common thread here is an epistemic crisis.
What do you mean?
Well, it's a crisis of how we know what is true. When traditional medical institutions seem slow or bureaucratic or complicated, people naturally turn to viral wellness marketing that offers a quick fix.
Right.
When official police reports in a shooting take too long, people turn to unverified community rumors. When the public doesn't know who to trust, they retreat into whoever offers the simplest, most comforting answer.
It's that deep desire for a maestro again. We desperately want the influencer to have the magic pill. We want the algorithm to just fix our problems. But, you know, while humans are down here struggling with complex geopolitical strategies and epistemic crises, Nature is just continuing its completely indifferent assault on our physical infrastructure.
Oh, yeah. The atmosphere does not care about our delicate supply chains or our diplomatic back
Oh,
channels.
not even a little bit. Let's look at the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They are currently trapped under a brutal heat advisory.
Right.
We are talking heat indices hitting 100 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. It's one of the most sustained early summer heat events they've seen in recent memory.
Wow.
Forecasters are saying the heat dome is finally showing signs of weakening ahead of a midweek northern front, so some relief might arrive by Wednesday or Thursday.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the mechanical compounding strain on resources.
How so?
Well, a heat dome creates a massive stagnant boundary of high pressure. When colder, unstable air hits the edge of that dome, it spins up violent storms.
Which explains exactly what happened in the Central Plains. An EF2 tornado struck Sedgwick County, Kansas overnight.
Yeah.
It literally blew a manufactured home entirely off its foundation near the Harvey County line, tragically killing one person. And while that's happening down on the Gulf Coast, they are still dealing with lingering flood watches from the residual moisture dumped by Tropical Storm Arthur.
So local governments and emergency responders are being asked to manage a 105-degree heat emergency while simultaneously dealing with infrastructure damage from tornadoes and severe flooding.
It's overwhelming.
The physical grid of our cities simply wasn't built to handle this kind of compounding simultaneous stress.
You know, I can't help but compare living with this kind of extreme compounding weather to the financial market volatility we talked about earlier. It makes you wonder if we are just being forced to accept extreme as our new baseline operating condition. Extreme heat, extreme storms, extreme market swings.
It certainly feels that way when you look at the data.
So we have the immense weight of historical legacy, the anxiety of a quantum future, the sheer chaos of the present. But we have to end this news cycle on something that reminds us of the exuberance of human achievement.
Good idea.
And honestly, it is happening right now on the soccer pitch.
Oh, the expanded 48-team World Cup is genuinely defying gravity right now.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because everyone doubted this 48-team format. The critics thought it would massively dilute the talent pool and lead to boring blowouts.
Right.
Instead, it is completely rewriting expectations and creating these incredible cinematic underdog stories. We just saw Cape Verde, an African nation, making their debut secure a dramatic 2-2 draw with Uruguay in Miami Gardens.
Unbelievable.
Kevin Pina scored a legendary goal for them. It's incredible.
The mechanics of the tournament have essentially democratized the sport on a global stage.
Yeah.
The lower-ranked nations are proving they absolutely belong.
Yeah.
But at the exact same time, the state titans of the sport are pushing the absolute biological limits of what is physically possible.
Which brings us to Lionel Messi. The man is 38 years old.
Still going.
And he just broke the all-time World Cup scoring record. And to be clear, that's not just the men's record, but the men's and women's combined record.
That's historic.
He scored twice in Argentina's 2-0 win over Austria. He now has 18 career World Cup goals. He is leading Argentina's title defense and showing absolutely zero signs of slowing down in what is almost certainly his final World Cup.
But the next generation is right on his heels.
Oh, yeah.
Kylian Mbappe just scored a brilliant left-footed strike for France against Iraq in a match that is currently underway. That brings Mbappe's total to 15 all-time goals.
Wow.
He is just 3 behind Messi's new record.
It is a literal clash of generations happening in real time, and the slate isn't even done today. Erling Haaland and Norway are currently facing Senegal, and we've got England versus Ghana coming up next.
It's going to be a great day of soccer.
It's a powerful reminder that amidst all the geopolitical chess, the supply chain anxiety, and the extreme weather, human resilience and peak physical performance can still captivate the entire globe.
It provides a very necessary psychological catharsis, a clear set of rules, a defined pitch, and a definitive, measurable outcome.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite of the murky, contradictory realities we've been dissecting for the last 15 minutes.
Totally. So what does all this mean for you, the listener? We've covered a massive scope today.
We really have.
We started with the economic shadow of Alan Greenspan and the dawn of a quantum computing Cold War. We navigated the contradictory mechanics of nuclear diplomacy in the Middle East, a political earthquake in Colombia, the breakdown of institutional truth in local tragedies and the gut health industry, the relentless extremes of our climate, and finally, the historic, record-shattering heights of the World Cup.
And the reason this deep dive matters is because none of these are isolated events.
Right.
The complex gamble of Iran oil sanctions directly dictates the price of the gas you put in your car this afternoon.
Yeah.
The quantum encryption race will absolutely determine the safety of your bank data and digital life tomorrow. And Greenspan's legacy of deregulation is actively shaping how your retirement portfolio is reacting to the AI boom this very second.
It's all connected.
You are a participant in this deeply interconnected system, whether you want to be or not.
Which brings us right back to where we started, the comforting illusion of control. Alan Greenspan's entire legacy was built on playing the maestro, using interest rates as a blunt instrument to cool down human psychology and our irrational exuberance.
Right.
But as we enter this new era, an era of quantum computers cracking codes in seconds and AI systems operating and trading at speeds far beyond human comprehension, who or what is going to be the maestro that steps in to cool down the irrational exuberance of the machines themselves? Will the algorithms eventually need their own Federal Reserve?
Now that is a problem that requires a completely different kind of symphony.
Something to mull over while you watch the rest of the World Cup. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.